Lesson 3. This is where we're going to tie in our study of the proportion to our knowledge of rational numbers. There's a very specific proportion that helps us solve problems with a percent. Because we know that percents are always out of 100, whatever my percent is will always be over 100. And that right there is a ratio, percent over 100. Now the other part, the other ratio on the opposite side, because remember a proportion is two ratios that are equal to each other. Fractions or ratios are usually written as a part out of a whole. And if you can recognize what the part is, usually signaled by the word is, and the whole is usually represented by the word of, then if you can fill out these pieces of information, similar to what we did with our WCOO charts, you can solve a percent problem using a proportion. Here are two examples. So split your workspace in half, and the first one we're going to do together, what percent of 15 is 12? The second example, what percent of 20 is 8? I want you to do that one on your own and answer the question for me on Play Pause It. So here we go. What percent of 15 is 12? Well, we're going to go ahead and set up my proportion. My 100 always goes on the bottom left-hand corner, or right-hand corner. And the percent goes on top of it because percent is out of 100. Now, if we're reading this sentence here, first of all, it's asking us what percent. That means we don't know the percent. I'm going to put a little P there. We have two numbers here, two numbers we're comparing, 15 and 12. 15 and 12. If we're looking at the percent proportion, we're looking for the part and which one's the whole. So if we're looking at this sentence, 15 is the whole amount. We're trying to figure out what part or what percent 12 makes out of that 15. And if you'll notice, it is signaled with the word of. Of 15 is in front of it. Now, 12 is the part. It's going to go over 15. So now we have two ratios that are going to be equivalent to each other, and we already know that. So this is a proportion. 12 over 15 equals P over 100. We need to figure out what percent that is. Now, 15 and 100 aren't necessarily compatible with each other. I mean, you could simplify 12/15ths and then go from there if you wanted to, and that's completely accurate mathematically, but it's just as efficient to go ahead and work out Billy Bob Joe the Butterfly, our cross products. That means 15 times P is equal to 12 times 100, which is 1200, or 1200. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 15. Now this is something you can use your calculator for. So P would be equivalent to 80. Now 80 is not the answer because we're asking for a percent. So I do need to go ahead and add on that percent sign. And what it's saying is that 12 over 15, if that's what you got on your quiz, you got an 80%. So 12 is 80% of 15. Now go ahead and try this example, what percent of 20 is 8, on your own and see what you come up with. Example 2 is the same sort of problem, but instead of finding the percent this time, we're going to be trying to find the part. The sentence here is what number is 36% of 50? Remember, our proportion is over of equals percent over 100, or part over whole equals percent over 100. Whenever you have a sentence like this, I always ask you to identify the number with the percent sign first, because it's the easiest to recognize. It's the only one with the percent symbol. It makes it easy to go ahead and place in our proportion because percents always go over 100. So we're going to rewrite this proportion with all the information that we know. So that is 36. It's not a B. It looks like a B, but it is a 6. So 36 over 100. And then now we got to find where to place the is and the of, or the part and the whole. So here it says what number is 36% of 50? Well, when you're finding of usually means the whole. So of 50, 50 is going to go in the denominator, and that means we're trying to find the part. We're trying to find the is part. So I'm going to put an X here since we don't know. Now I could do my cross products, or I can do mental math because 50 and 100 are compatible with each other. And when I work this way, though, I always want my arrows with my mental math to point towards the unknown. Normally, we would have done 50 times 2 is 100, but since we want to figure out what the x value is, I want that arrow to point there. So my mental math is 100 divided by what is 50? Well, 100 divided by 2 is 50. So 36 divided by 2 will give me whatever x is. Well, 36 divided by 2 is 18. So x equals 18. I don't need to add a percent this time because I'm only finding the part of the whole. I already have a number with a percent sign, so I don't need another one. This is just 18. If I were to solve this using proportions, I would have come up with the same answer, but let's go ahead and work it out. So this would be 100x equals 36 times 50, which is 1,800. Divide both sides by 100. Those one out, and I'm left with x. My two zeros cancel off, and 18 divided by 1 is 18. So those match. Either way is fine. Remember, we can solve proportions those two different ways. All right, let's give example 2 a shot. What is 45%? What number is 45% of 80? All right, so we're going to go ahead and solve this problem. In example 1, we found the percent. Example 2, we found the part, and now we're trying to find the whole. Our proportion remains the same for all of these different things. We just have to figure out where to place the information. So P over 100 is over of, part over whole. Always start by placing the number with the percent sign first. It's the easiest to identify because it has a percent sign, and percents always go over 100 because that's the definition of percent. So 150 goes over 100. Then I've got to decide, it's like, of what number is 24? So is 24 represents the part. 24 is going to go on the top where the is. And of what number? So that word what represents that I don't know what quantity it is. I'm going to put a variable there. Now 24 and 150, I don't think they're very compatible with each other. And I'm not going to spend the time trying to figure it out because I know that my cross products are efficient when done properly and will always get me the right answer. So efficiency here is key. 150 times x equals 24 times 100, which is 2,400. Divide both sides by 150. 150 divided by 150 is 1. 2,400 divided by 150. Type that in my calculator and I've got 16. So it's saying that my whole would be 16. And if I think about that ratio of part to whole, where my part is 24 and my whole is 16, if I take that fraction and I simplify it to the best of my ability, that would be 3 halves. Well, 3 halves is the same thing as 1 1/2, or 1.5, which when we convert to a percent is 150%. Since those two match up, I know that I got the right answer. Okay, go ahead and try out the last example. 210% of what number is 84? So since it's 210%, your answer should be more than double 84.